Chapter 17. Nice. When I was 12 years old, a group of kids started what we called the Helping Hands Club in our neighborhood. We'd walk around looking for someone who needed help. If we saw someone digging weeds, we'd say, "We'd like to help you." Then we'd pitch in and dig alongside them. The adults really appreciated that. We didn't charge for our work, but we usually got paid. Sometimes a quarter or 50 cents, or even as much as $1. Or sometimes, weeks later, we'd see someone we'd helped. That person would recognize us and offer candy or ice cream. They became friendly to the members of our club because they liked us. That's how I and other kids in our neighborhood learned that if we were nice, we would be rewarded. Even with $1 being worth a lot more in those days, the greatest reward was never monetary. It was the positive relationships we developed with our neighbors and the personal satisfaction of doing something positive, unselfish, and nice for someone else. That lesson stuck with me. And as I tried to apply it in other areas, I found it such a powerful factor in my personal and professional life. So when I began to share my thoughts and advice on success with audiences young and old, I quickly decided nice had to be the N in my Think Big philosophy. I define nice with a list of synonyms: thoughtful, gentle, considerate, caring, pleasant, polite, agreeable, congenial, helpful, all of which add up to something close to, but not quite equal to, the idea I hope to convey when I say nice. Being nice means the following. Don't talk about people behind their backs. Don't put people down in front of their backs. If you see someone struggling with something, help him or her with it. Put yourself in the other person's place before you criticize. If the elevator door is open and only one space is left, let someone else get on. When driving, if someone puts a blinker on, slow down and let him or her in. Speak to people. Say good morning or hello to those you meet in the school hallway. Greet people by name whenever you can. When I put niceness in those terms, most people understand exactly what I am talking about. I remember speaking at a conference in the San Francisco Bay Area years ago. I told my listeners, if you're not a nice person, I challenge you to try it for 1 week. It's 10 minutes before 10 on Friday morning. Until 9:50 next Friday morning, be nice to everybody. Smile and greet the people you encounter. Once they get over their initial shock, most people will be happy to greet you in return. You'll find that being nice is often contagious. About 5:30 that evening, I was walking through the hotel lobby when I heard a woman calling, "Oh, Dr. Carson, Dr. Carson!" I stopped and turned to find a fashionably dressed woman in her 50s zigzagging her way toward me. She introduced herself and said, "I want to tell you how much I appreciated your talk this morning. You actually made me cry." She told me she had taken my challenge to be nice to everyone she met. I already feel like a new person. She not only felt good about herself, but she had also been amazed by people's reactions. Her day had become an adventure as she wondered, whom can I be nice to next? As we parted company, she said, "I think you've changed my life." Over the years, I have discovered several reasons for being nice. First, you get more done by being nice. Whether you are merely trying to communicate or you are actually trying to accomplish a major task. 2 brief scenarios. Not long ago, Candy and I made a trip to France. Before we left, we brushed up on the language, which we hadn't spoken since our college French courses. Neither of us was fluent, but we thought it would be nice to make an effort to converse with our hosts in their native tongue. Though we did it to be polite, we quickly discovered the greater benefit. Most of the French people we met spoke much better English than our French. So invariably, after listening to our feeble attempts to converse in their language, they gladly began to use ours. We were then able to have much more helpful and interesting conversations than would have been possible had we simply expected them to communicate in our language from the start. They clearly appreciated our efforts, and our goodwill was more than repaid in kind. Being nice also pays off professionally. I am well aware that across the field of medicine and in most hospitals, surgeons often have a reputation for being hard to get along with, and neurosurgeons are often the prickliest, most unpleasant of all. Some colleagues might excuse this by saying our job is so demanding and exacting because our decisions and actions mean the difference between life and death for our patients. Therefore, we need and expect a constant standard of excellence and immediate maximum professional effort from everyone working with us. We have to be so focused on what we're thinking, seeing, and doing that there's a natural tendency for us to be snippy, impatient, demanding, critical, and otherwise oblivious to the feelings and perspectives of those around us. If we're not careful, we can take out our own tension, tiredness, frustration, our fear of failure, and our sense of desperation on those working with us. We may trample all over the feelings of the very people we have to count on every day. Yet I could not do my job as a surgeon without the assistance and expertise of many other people, not only in the OR, but also in recovery, the wards, labs, other hospital departments, my office, and everywhere my patients and their medical records go. I quickly learned that if I make a consistent daily effort to be nice to the folks I encounter and work with, whether that person is a fellow surgeon or a filing clerk in radiology tracking down a lost X-ray, they tend to be nicer back to me. If I've made a habit of greeting them by name when I can, thanking them for their help, commending them for quick and efficient work, and knowing them well enough to ask about their kids' most recent sports achievements or their spouse's current job, those people cooperate faster and try harder to accomplish anything I ask of them. I'm not talking about getting what I want by being manipulative. I'm merely saying, be nice. The positive attitudes that usually result help improve others' performance and mine as well. Second, being nice feels good. The lady who caught me in that San Francisco hotel lobby discovered this in just a few hours. My friends and I discovered it with our Helping Hands Club. I've experienced it in my professional and personal relationships. Being nice is simply a better way to live and its own reward. Everyone is worth it. Being nice is a simple, practical, concrete way to acknowledge the uniqueness God created in every individual and to show each person we encounter the respect and dignity he or she deserves. It demonstrates a spirit of democracy that says we think other people matter. We like to think of America as a classless society, but if we are honest, we have to admit that we are divided into many categories: ethnically, racially, economically, educationally, socially, geographically. Being nice to everyone is the simplest way I know to lower the artificial barriers human beings have erected. During college, I remember people who were loners. Everyone else would be slapping each other's backs and having a good time, while the loners would be sitting off in a corner, eating lunch by themselves. Perhaps I empathized because I was something of an introvert myself. Often I would take a seat close to a loner, not directly next to them, but sort of catty corner. Then I'd try to start a conversation to see if they were looking for somebody to talk to. Most of the time they were. I was actually able to develop a number of friendly relationships like that. And some of those loners turned out to be really great people. They just needed a little prodding to open up. One of them turned out to be very helpful to me with calculus, and our relationship became a two-way street. Being nice is much easier in the long run. We have all heard that smiling requires less energy and fewer muscles than frowning. That same economy of effort idea holds true in most human interactions. Reduced tension and increased goodwill add up to greater efficiency. You seldom make enemies by being nice, and life without enemies is always easier. Doctors whose patients think they are nice do not get sued as often, and that certainly made my professional life a lot easier. You never lose by being nice. It seldom costs anything, except a little time, thought, and energy. Sure, you occasionally run into people who will take advantage of your kindness. They might even consider niceness to be a weakness, but in the end, niceness wins out. We may all agree that being nice is a good thing, but some of us struggle with the how. If you have gotten out of the habit, or you want to be more consistently nice, try the following steps. 1. Take yourself out of the equation. Whatever the setting, home, school, church, extracurricular activities, one of the keys to being perceived as a nice person is to take your ego out of the picture. This is crucial whether you're in a conflict, casual exchange, or deeply personal relationship. 2. Try to look at the other person's point of view. This helps some people accomplish step 1. Either way, these two strategies seem to work best in tandem. We can usually gain a better perspective if we look at life not just from our own vantage point, but from the other person's position as well. When we consider their feelings, ideas, and motives, we'll find it much easier to be nice. 3. Just listen. Listening automatically takes you out of the center of the equation and helps you see the other person's viewpoint. When you listen, you validate a person's worth and recognize the respect and dignity they deserve. I learned early in my medical career that the single most valuable thing I could do for patients is to listen. Many of them were too young to tell me anything, so I listened to their parents. I cannot count the number of times a patient's mother has told me something important about her child, some medically significant clue I would not have learned from any examination or test, a clue that enabled me to successfully diagnose and treat the problem. 4. Put aside personal preference. People who cannot be nice remind me of children in the back of a car, bickering over who gets to sit by the window. Fortunately, most children develop a more mature perspective as they grow older and backseat squabbles diminish. And yet some never want to give up the window, putting their own preferences aside. I can think of one instance in which I have had to learn to do this. For most of my adult life, I have been a vegetarian. But out of consideration, in other words, to be nice, I have learned to eat chicken or turkey in situations where I cannot gracefully manage to have a vegetarian meal. My wife and I still laugh about the time we were invited to a small dinner party at the home of friends who had forgotten we were vegetarians. The main course that night happened to be pork chops with pineapple topping. I have never eaten pork, and among so few guests, I knew my avoidance of the entree would not go unnoticed. So I served myself rice and vegetables, then scooped some of the pineapple onto my rice, hoping it might look as though a pork chop were lurking underneath there somewhere. I also hoped the hostess would not notice. No such luck. Unfortunately, the flavor of the pork had soaked into the pineapple and made me so nauseated that I could not eat. When our hostess realized the problem, she was embarrassed anyway. She too tried to be nice by not calling attention to me, but she appreciated the fact that at least I had tried to avoid hurting her feelings. So in that case, merely the attempt to be nice made a difference. 5. Learn to love people. If you really love people, being nice to them is almost second nature. For me, this strategy is closely connected to my own personal faith. I believe what the Bible says in 1 John chapter 4, verses 19 to 21. We love because He first loved us. Whoever claims to love God, yet hates a brother or sister, is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister, whom they have seen, cannot love God, whom they have not seen. And He has given us this command: anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. If I say I love God, I have no choice but to show it by loving and being nice to other people. 6. Do unto others. We can forget all 5 of these prior strategies if we just remember the best strategy of all, the golden rule, which Jesus gave His followers. He boils the entire be nice idea down to one simple sentence: do to others as you would have them do to you. Luke 6:31. That is not only the simplest and best way to take yourself out of the equation, but it is also the most comprehensive plan for being nice. Even though it is true that some people will take advantage of kindness and might even consider it a weakness, in the long run, kindness prevails. Yet being nice doesn't mean being a wimp or letting others hurt or take advantage of you. Being nice is a choice. It cannot be dictated by circumstances or forced on you against your will. It is a conscious decision, requiring determination, conviction, and strength of character. In the case of the woman who falsely accused me of fathering her child, I chose to be forgiving and not pursue legal action. But there was another case recently where I decided I could not risk being so nice. A woman from New York whom I had never met evidently became infatuated with me. She wrote me countless letters and enclosed nude pictures of herself. When I did not respond, she began to make wild threats. Her letters became so irrational that my lawyer and a psychiatrist advised me to make arrangements for special security whenever I traveled to the New York City area. I also decided the danger warranted legal action. So the state's attorneys from Maryland and New York had to get involved until this woman realized the gravity of the situation and quit harassing me. I concluded long ago that if two people always agree on everything, then one of those people is probably not needed. So I neither expect nor want the people I work or live with to always agree with me. But we can be nice to each other when expressing an opinion the other person does not want to hear. This reminds me of a conversation I had with a final-year medical school student. He quickly told me his story. He admitted to feeling a kinship with me. Despite growing up in poverty, he too had set himself the lofty goal of becoming a doctor. Throughout his academic career, this young man did well in the classroom, but always struggled with standardized tests. That pattern held true in medical school as well. He explained to me how he'd completed all his coursework, passed his classes with flying colors, but after 4 years of hard work, he had done so poorly on his comprehensive exams that the school had ruled him ineligible to graduate that year. He was advised that before he could receive his degree, he would have to retake 3 courses and sufficiently demonstrate his mastery of that material. He had just learned the ruling and was embarrassed, frustrated, angry, and devastated. More than anything, he was afraid his lifelong dream would be lost. He didn't know what he should do. Ultimately, he believed this administrative decision was a form of discrimination. At the urging of some of his friends and family, he was considering legal action, but he wondered what I thought he should do. I empathized with this young man's frustrations, fears, and concerns, but I quickly realized he wanted my approval to validate his feelings, to justify his angry response, and as an endorsement to sue. Instead, I pointed out that no one had said he would not be able to graduate. Neither had they said they thought he was incapable of becoming a doctor. The fact that he failed to make the required grade on his comps was more indicative of his own lifelong problem with standardized testing than it was evidence of any discrimination. Yet no one had closed the door to his dream. They had actually found a way to leave the door open. All that his advisor had said was that he would be required to take 3 additional courses to prove that he knew what he needed to know to be a good doctor. His disappointment and embarrassment were understandable, but I told him what I thought would be his simplest and best course of action. I would advise you to retake the courses. My response was not what that young student wanted to hear. Yet the moment I said it, the emotion and tension drained out of that room like air out of a balloon. He did not argue. After thanking me for my advice, we parted company. I later learned that he had followed my advice, took the courses, passed the test to everyone's satisfaction, and is a doctor today. And whenever I think about that young man, I'm reminded that being nice does not mean we always have to agree. Niceness and honesty are not incompatible. In fact, truthfulness plus kindness equals tact. And tact is wonderfully illustrated by my friend and longtime colleague, Dr. Levi Watkins, a noted cardiovascular surgeon. As the first Black chief resident in cardiac surgery at Johns Hopkins, Levi's numerous professional accomplishments include the first successful implantation of the automatic cardiac defibrillator, a device that can prevent fatal cardiac arrhythmias. Not only is he recognized throughout the world for his professional contribution to medical science that has saved millions of lives, but Levi was also known throughout our Johns Hopkins community as being an exceedingly nice man. His tender-hearted, caring nature brought all kinds of people with all kinds of personal problems to his office for advice. Yet Levi was known as much for his candor as for his kindness. Not long ago, a resident who had a serious personality conflict with some of the attending physicians came to Levi to complain and seek his support in rectifying the situation. Levi checked into the situation and confirmed that the problem was indeed a personality conflict. Instead of trying to resolve the conflict, Levi suggested that the resident's best course of action would be to transfer to another hospital. He did so and did well in the new program. Levi does not waste time hiding his feelings or opinions. He simply tells it like it is and doesn't compromise his standards. That is why his counsel is so widely valued. Our best model for not compromising our standards is also our best model in every area of life: Jesus. He is not only the author of the ultimate standard of niceness, the Golden Rule, but he also taught and lived by higher standards than anyone else in history. Everything we know about Jesus Christ indicates he was certainly a nice person. But that does not mean he excused sin or lowered his expectations of himself or others. He proved that it was possible to be loving, thoughtful, gentle, considerate, and caring, yet still hold to and live by an unwavering belief that wrong is wrong and right is always right. Before we leave this subject, I'd like to address an area of our modern culture where a lot of people compromise their standards and forget to be nice at all. I'm talking about the internet and social media. Most of us have so many virtual friends and acquaintances we connect with online, using whatever the hottest new apps and sites are this year, this month, this week, that it becomes all too easy to forget that behind every one of those usernames, Twitter handles, hashtags, and avatars is an actual human being with real feelings. So many of those participating in the pop culture trend of trolling the internet to pick virtual fights and to gang up on others who stand, who have different ideas, different cultures, different standards, different politics, different faiths, seem to have forgotten their basic manners, social skills, morals, and sometimes even their humanity. If you wouldn't join in a mugging you saw taking place on a street, if you wouldn't physically attack or verbally abuse and cruelly insult an acquaintance in your school, why would you ever ridicule or hurl vicious and hurtful words at a person online? Virtual violence can cause real pain and suffering in the real world. Before you shrug that off, look up and read some of the well-publicized and tragic cases where young people, and some not-so-young people, have committed suicide in the wake of being cruelly attacked, vilified, ridiculed, embarrassed, or exposed on the internet, where anyone with access to a computer can witness their humiliation. That so many think such behavior is entertaining is a sad commentary on our culture, and it's the extreme and total opposite of nice. Be nice. It's such an elementary concept, yet I probably get as much reaction to this one as any other topic I speak about, which underscores the importance of this seemingly simple, very practical, and exceedingly valuable idea.